You've probably looked around and you're like, why is her kitchen such a disaster? Kind of waiting for some comments because I definitely have had comments in real life about that situation. And if you want to know, stay tuned here because I'm going to share exactly what that situation is. I wanted to be Barb, the builder. It turned out I was just the destroyer.
Hey friends, this is the Next Level Glam podcast, and I'm Glam Gal. Thank you for joining me as I discuss all things transformation, inside and out, with my sisters in Christ. Pull up a chair, it's about to go next level.
Hey sunshine, welcome back to the Next Level Glam podcast. I'm Glam Gal, your host. How are you doing today? Man, I definitely feel in such a better place this week, and I know it's because some of you popped out of the woodwork to encourage me and lift me up. I'm so grateful for y'all. Here we are ending towards March. I'm starting to get a grip a little bit on how much daylight we have at night because when we go through that time change, or at least we do who live in time change states, it's like all of a sudden you go from no sunlight after like 4:30 to sunlight until like 8 o'clock, and you've trained your stamina through the winter to pretty much get you to go to bed super early or just kind of crash. And now that I've had a couple of weeks to adjust, it's kind of nice now, having that time to feel like bedtime is at 8 o'clock instead of feeling like it's 5 o'clock. So that's been good. And everything that's been going on in my personal life, it's still there, but the Lord's handling it. And like some of you said, we take it day by day. His grace is day by day. And like Jesus says, you have enough troubles for today. And we have his grace for today. Every day that we wake up is the day of our salvation. So with that, I wanted to talk a little bit more about a development of a characteristic since stepping out, in faith. And obviously, this journey has been going on for years and years, but really, we're really feeling the push here over the last year of a major change, like starting to see the ripple effect of making that change. If you're following me on Instagram, which is at the Glam Gal _ or you can catch me at the Next Level Glam podcast. Whether you see me on, Facebook, Instagram, maybe you've noticed that I've definitely been making a point to have more of a presence, taking up more space. And it has been a journey to get to this point of putting myself out there. And like I've discussed on this podcast before, go with the Lord. If the Lord is calling you for a season or forever to walk away from things like social media, that's on your own journey. But in my own journey, like I've shared, I felt at one point I was like ready to unplug. And I just felt the Lord tell me that I needed to get on here and find the fellowship, find the fellow brethren. My tribe is the world would call it, right? And you won't do that from, just hiding yourself from behind the screen. And social media is an incredibly powerful tool to stay connected, to make connections. And, over the last 5 years on my Instagram alone, I've been sharing like daily stories, just trying to make a connection with a platform of people. It's just a great way to stay in touch and share like what goes on in your life, because like I've shared in the podcast, like hiding who you are is not going to help somebody, and it's scary. I just can't focus on the fear. Like the minute that it comes against me where I feel like it doesn't matter, that I can't do it anymore, I don't want to do it anymore, he refreshes me with the mission. And honestly, if it's something like someone is making me feel bad, or I'm feeling weird watching someone else's shenanigans, it just enforces me to get up and make my own content and put myself out there. Stop focusing so much on what other people are doing that I'm not doing. You know what I mean? And do me basically, but put it out there so other people don't feel as alone, or perhaps they will feel inspired by me being so open and transparent about, my circumstances and situation. And also just I want to be a mouthpiece for the Lord, and not always overtly where I'm just shouting stuff in people's faces, but that they can see that light of him in me and being expressed through this weak vessel. So before we started season 3, I was ending season 2, sharing what I was going to be up to. I shared how I was going to be kind of working on some content. And truly, that's what it has turned out to be, is just kind of playing around with making content, whether it's just sharing recipes or the daily routine or things just behind the scenes. Day by day, just kind of working on content. And I started posting daily now, like for over a month straight, over 2 months straight. And the Lord is really sustaining me in doing that because it's just like this podcast. I worry about, like, what if I have nothing to talk about? What if whatever? And every day there comes a new idea, and just reminded me of the mission that it's really about connecting with that audience and finding a way to bring some light and joy into their life. And it's not like the response has been like overwhelming or life changing or anything. Like I said, this has been a growth process of me putting myself out there for years and years, but really the last few months really pushing my own kind of content and like trying to get to a place where I feel like I'm being transparent with people and I'm not, hiding so much behind the screen or hiding certain things about my life. Out of doing that, I do have people that I would have never expected God to use to drop into my DMs or comment or like and just give me so much encouragement from that. And I definitely don't let it be the fuel that gets me going every day. Showing up for myself, thereby showing up for other people, definitely gets me going every day because I'm reminded and refreshed in the Lord every single day. Bare minimum, the gospel. I'm not saying every day is super spiritual and I just recite the gospel and it's like this mystical experience. I'm not saying that at all. I just know that there is at least one point in the day where I am reminded of who I am in Christ. I'm reminded of what his finished work is and what that implies to me as I grow in the knowledge of the Lord through the scriptures and through edification of the fellowship of true brethren. And I'm always here trying to encourage my fellow brethren to show up and take up some space. Yeah, there are going to be people who do not like you taking up your space, but like that's not your problem. The point is, we are all given this platform, no matter if it's in real life, if it's on social media, and whatever app, it doesn't matter. You have a platform that you can use to speak out or, share things about, to share the love of Christ, to share the light of Christ without having it to be about just sitting here talking scriptures. I understand that that's not what a lot of people find interesting, you know what I mean? But uh it's not the only way that God does speak to us if we have the Spirit. He lives through us in our day-to-day tasks, and it's all about us putting on our charity, right, in Christ and loving one another in Christ. And we try to live peaceably with all men, but it's not a perfect world out here. It's not a perfect situation as we've discussed. But thank you if you are one of the ones who've been following me or sharing my stuff or giving me some really great feedback. That I store up like in my camel hump. I don't know if you know that about camels, how they store their water so that they can like have good stamina and not get dehydrated and die in the desert. I kind of look at my feedback like that. It does add a little bit of go-go juice, but I know the Lord is really fueling my life day to day. And every day gets like more apparent to me that I just want to praise his name and his faithfulness to me, to my family, to this podcast, living by faith, not by sight, where it's not going to be overt, right? But like if you really start thinking about it, and really just looking around to see the evidence of him in your life, you're going to find it, and it can blow you away when you find out you really are in the overflow of Hooper Perizio grace, that superabounding grace. We are after the unsearchable riches in Christ, and you actually tell your mind that, right? Like when you refresh your mind in truth, that becomes the reality that we are allowed to live in. And it's by faith. And it makes it possible for me to really hear and tune in and hear him direct my paths, so to speak, day to day, moment to moment. I've really needed that over the last year or so, especially because it really has been that process, like I shared in a few episodes ago, about getting me to the point of fully stepping away from the matrix outside the home and really making my priority at home and all the home roles that society likes to skirt over just like it's so easy. Like it reminds me of the part of Pride and Prejudice where they talk about an accomplished woman, about how they have a something to their air and they speak languages and they're good at the arts and they're good at this and they're good at that. And one of them was saying like that word is applied to liberally, like it's very rare. And Lizzie Bennett was just saying she's never seen one because what a fearsome thing to behold. You know what I mean? And I really do think that our society makes it seem like there are so many accomplished women that are able to like do it all. But I, at one point, was getting to that point of trying to do it all, right? Trying to be a wife, a mom, striving outside the home, taking care of myself, taking this to the next level. And it was very tsunami that I was not capable. I'm just not. If I'm being real, someone's getting cut short somewhere. So, it really brought me to that place of wanting to be good at whatever the Lord had for me, whatever God's will was for my life, and realizing that I was overcomplicating it. And I needed to rest and grow in His grace, number one, to really fill up on the peace and the grace that's necessary to chug this choo-choo along every single day and feed that into my husband and my daughter and the ones that He places in my path, as well as online. Hence why, I jumped online to get outside myself because it's really easy to be secluded in the town that I live in. It's like 1,200 people, right? I don't have a car during the day to get around. I'm very much at home. So this was just all unfolding essentially. But when you step away from something that's been your identity, when is the last time that you really attempted to do something that kicked your butt? Because I literally, 7 months in here, I'm telling you, day to day, I get my ass kicked a lot trying to be that involved mom, teacher, wife, house cleaner, baker, like sexy lady, and take care of myself. It's been kicking my ass over the last 7 months. Stepping away from that job was like stepping away from a safety net because that job was always my excuse of why I couldn't be a great wife, a great mom, or do this and do that. And having to stand here naked, basically, right, to ask Him to like build us up in Him, give us the skill and capabilities to do the thing and do it well, because He has given us gifts and skills. And some of those just need refining. They've been buried under everybody else's expectations, how you were raised, what and we're always in a process. I think at a certain point, people who are like checked in anyway of like uh identifying error, identifying truth and unlearning and relearning and letting the Holy Spirit help us discern all things and teach us all things because He do. People are always talking about Solomon, how he's like the most wise person in the world. God was really impressed in some sense where Solomon was given an option to ask for anything and he asked for the wisdom, like God's wisdom. And obviously it paid off rather well. But people act like that's out of the realm of possibility that God could give to us. He says that He shares His knowledge and wisdom generously in scripture. So I really trusted in faith and asking for that when I was stepping away. In one hand, I was like, I want to leave this job. And the other hand, I'm looking at what is on the other hand, all of this that I'd be taking on. And it got to the point where that looked so horrible that this was so overtly the thing I was supposed to be doing. But that doesn't mean that I felt confident to go after all of this stuff that I felt the stay-at-home life really included, I guess. Like I said, I left the household with maybe a C minus in being a wife. I left my household very unsure of the scope of the roles that women were really supposed to do, how it looked, all of these things. So again, God taking my crooked paths and making them straight in His own time as I'm stepping out day by day, just living in faith on the word that He spoke to me, to rely on Him and to do His will, which is to love one another, to believe on Him and to love one another, starting with my own family, because that issue in my life is such a core issue of what family is to me at this point, like really redefining what love is and how I can change the outcome by identifying toxic stuff or bad decisions and turning it around and just believing on God's promise that He can redeem things, even if we've messed up, even if we have a haunting past, even if we have like a kind of complicated present. I just started implementing that whole entire thing where you're like, well, what does the stay-at-home mom do? What is my day to day? What do I want that to look like? And of course, when I first made the instant change, like I've shared, I was basically burritoed under the weight of failing something yet again, right? Like I have the Lord refresh me in His time to gas me up to start taking on what seemed and does still seem very intimidating. Like I wanted to be the wife who packed her husband lunch every day. And the thing is, years ago, I did pack my man lunches. but he would always forget them. He would always forget them because I would like have them packed in the fridge and I would still be sleeping and he'd forget them. Or I would get up, get his lunch on the counter, and I'd go sit down and he would still forget them. And I got to the point where I felt so disrespected from spending that time doing that and having it forgotten that I was like, fine, you don't want to eat? That's fine. That's not my problem. But when I started staying home, I was like, no, like he is going to provide for this family. And this is a way that we can show him love and make sure that you're supporting that he gets food and nourishment and hydration. And, men really do love being taken care of the way that women love to be cherished. And we always go back to the women, submit to your husbands. Husbands love your wives. Like, so Christ loved the church, and gave himself for her. And uh I don't get to just demand to be cherished and loved like that. Like I need to come in on my end too. I'm not saying I'm going to be perfect at it. And I think that's kind of the point is, I used to just throw like a hungry man in a bag and be like, there you go, there's your lunch. But now I'm shuffling down the stairs super early. And I do go through seasons where your girl gets up early, but there, are, of course, those weeks and days where I'm so tired that I just like, I would love to sleep in, especially these last couple of weeks with the time change. My sleeping is a little off. My stamina of my energy is kind of getting reconfigured. And it's been a challenge to just get down the stairs and throw him a salami sandwich and get out the door. And I would make sure that I would at least stand around and spend time with him, make sure he actually leaves with his lunch in hand. I know that doesn't sound like a lot to some people, but truly, like me making sure that I'm being involved as, he's getting ready for work, that has been wonderful. And like that last week here, I just stayed in bed. He'd leave and come kiss me goodbye, and then I would get up and we would miss each other, right? I would see like how much more times than not I love seeing him in the morning and making sure he is taken care of and give him a kiss goodbye. That's something that's changed a lot just by trying to be that wife that I see in my head. As much as I have my own sad stories, right? Among the sad story, I would actually be sent. This was something I looked forward to, by the way, because it was an escape for me. But every other summer growing up, from the time I was like, I don't know, 5 to like 16 or something like that, I would go out east to stay with a certain part of the family for like a couple of months. And we would stay with probably the most impactful people in my life. One of them was a married couple. It was my great uncle on my mother's side and his wife. And when we stayed with them, they were already in their, I want to say 60s to 70s. My uncle was actually 12 years older than his wife, my aunt. And they were such a colorful addition to my life. It really gave me some pride in my family and history because, my mom ran away from her family to the Midwest. And we had that disconnection. It was really hard to maintain those lines of communication, but I always made sure to do my part to make sure that I talked to this specific couple because to me, and I know that they have their own family, okay, but to me, they were the grandparents that I wanted. Like I had grandparents, my mom's parents, and I had like zero to little relationship with those people. And some of the experience I experienced with them were pretty traumatic. It was like the cards that you're dealt and the hand that you wish you had been dealt. But the blessing was is that my great uncle and my great aunt would take us in. It was like being around people that made you feel seen and loved. I think by the time my great uncle died, they'd been married like 48 years. And this is the kind of day that would happen where you'd wake up early in the morning, maybe around 6 a.m. You'd come down the stairs. My great aunt would already have a stack of pancakes, on the table waiting for us. The dishes were already going. The laundry, she's about to go outside and change. Then she's, giving my great uncle his pills and getting him ready for the day because he had some health and medical issues. That, she was the best housewife and caregiver. She just made it seem so seamless, making dinners and lunches and still putting her lipstick to go to the doctor and doing the errands and, having the social life. And this endeared person to me that at one point, I mean, I grew up and I had some things happen where I felt like I definitely jaded the relationship. It was like my coming of age to see your choices and the consequences that happened. There was a heartbreaking moment there, but where like the rose-colored glasses kind of came off. But throughout my life, I've always, I don't want to say idolized, but like looked to how she was and like how I wanted to provide that. And I remember her sharing it with me one day as she was teaching me how to make my favorite dish over the stove. There were so many recipes of hers that I was like, teach me, because I mean, and she's still with us to this day, and I pray for her. She comes to mind every single day. But I remember her sharing with me that when she was first married at 18 to my great uncle, and he would go out early in the mornings to do his gravel business, she would make him salt sandwiches. And I was like, no way. And she's like, no, for real. I barely got up, shuffled down, threw some salt and some bread, and packed it on, and there he went. Like, because she was an unrefined housewife, but she had grown up in the old world, Jen, like obviously some of the first immigrants here from like Portugal. And they had that traditional role of, cooking and cleaning and taking care of the man and the house and all of that. That literally gave me so much grace to look at how I'm doing here, where it was like, we had a different path, we had different lives and stuff, but I started being like, if she started at salt sandwiches, I'm doing salami sandwiches, like last night, for instance, because I made sure to make a tasty dinner and then pack it for his lunch. And all I ask is that he brings my dishes back. Is that so much to ask? That's very frustrating. That it's one of those things that keep things flavorful in our marriage, right? Did you bring your dishes home? What? I got to bring them home. Yeah, they need to be refilled, right? And then all of a sudden you're sending them in Dollar General freaking plastic bags because you don't have any dishes left. As much as I am sharing the the content that I am right now, whether it's, being a homemaker, some of the recipes, I want to let you know that behind the scenes, there are plenty of days where I'm just not cutting it, that like you am obviously falling short. Like, yesterday was my niece's birthday and she's on spring break, so she decided to come over and hang with my daughter. So in the early in the morning, I got my husband, his lunch ready to go. It was only a salami sandwich yesterday, but got him out the door. I got some laundry going. I started doing a recipe. Laundry needed to be switched over. Got to wake up my daughter. My niece comes over. I make another recipe. Got to do dishes. Laundry needs to be put back over. Got to fold the laundry. Got to put this laundry away. Got to make the bed. Got to wash my face, brush my teeth, put some clean clothes on, right? And I didn't even like incorporate much self-care at all yesterday for myself because I had so much attention to the house and being a mom and making, we're taking a little break from homeschool, obviously, since my niece was over and they just wanted to hang. But, you're making the jam and you're feeding the sourdough. And feeding the sourdough. Can't even think about how we're going to handle the sourdough. And we got to make dinner, right? A husband's coming home, got to make a tasty dinner. And just ding, towels are done. Ding, dishes need to be done. And it got to the point where I did like 8 loads of dishes. And by the time that my husband and I were done with dinner about 6:37, I was like, I am beat. I barely sat for 30 minutes today. But I will tell you that it felt incredibly fulfilling to me. I remember when they used to mop the floor with me at the salon, just haircut after haircut after haircut after haircut, and me coming home so depleted and on so many levels. This was different. You know what I'm saying? This is a different kind of feeling. It's like I said, the best privileges and jobs that I've ever had. And, how do we pay our rent? I cook, I clean, I bake stuff, and I do have hustles on the side, guys. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with women making some money. I will say that behind the scenes of all these videos that I'm sharing and doing, there are real struggles. Like, yesterday I friggin' broke a glass, cut my hand, grated my finger. I was grating carrots. My jam splooged over and made a giant mess. I ruined a jam recipe. I wasted like so much produce and sugar and stuff on, that totally did not turn out. And I've been trying to work with my discard sourdough. And I was like, this is going to be easy. I've been baking so long. Just put the discard in there and it's going to be great. They're going to be amazing. No, total fail where you're just dumping it in the trash. Things that can be very discouraging. When you feel like you did great in the house and kitchen and as a wife and a mother and as a homemaker, but then you look at you and you're like, how could he even be attracted to me? I'm so run down. I barely had time to brush my hair today. And that struggle is always going to be the ongoing struggle of balance as I'm learning my stamina within the household of what I would like to accomplish. And I will say that also in these videos, one of the biggest things I had to overcome was recording myself in my actual home, like, and getting people to see, how I live. Now, if you've seen those videos, I'm sure at one point, since I'm baking in my kitchen a lot, that you've probably looked around and you're like, why is her kitchen such a disaster? Or maybe you're thinking, hey, she's mid remod, right? Kind of waiting for some comments because I definitely have had comments in real life about that situation. And if you want to know, stay tuned here because I'm going to share exactly what that situation is and how it's really like humbled me over the last almost 8 years at this point. So, in the last episode, BTS, behind the scenes, I talked about how I was living with my no contact person. I thought it was 6 months. I guess it was more about 4 months, actually, but 4 months. And then the house that we finally got was across the street. It was a short sale. So that's why we had to end up living with them because 2 months prior, we had put an offer in on this short sale and they just really I don't know how else to say it, but they really us around for 6 months with all kinds of crap. So it got to the point where we were living was so incredibly traumatic to me that going back home looked like a prize. I was like, I got this. It's just maybe a month or a week, because we didn't know at this time how long this short sale was going to take, but we were seeing how a lot of people's experience ended up being 6 months. So we spent about 4 months and I was ready to go. Like, even though it was just across the street, I was ready to go. And the thing about this house is, I was just talking about this with my husband this weekend because about God's sovereignty, about how we don't look back in our life and say, like, if I had done this differently and if I had done this differently, it's like God uses all things for our good, even our past, even our mistakes. And letting some of the consequences of our life is a discipline. Like people like to really make God's character about punishment and like discipline in the sense where like he's going to beat you, he's going to punish you, he's going to take something from you. And the more that I grow and rest in his grace and, really get epiphanies essentially of his love, I realize that like isn't our life consequences enough? He uses those to have us be comforted by him. That's kind of how I was feeling sometimes when I think about like why did I have to pick this location? I knew even at that time that this no contact person in my life, we didn't have the best relationship. I was just really wearing a heavy mask trying to be a people pleaser and also thinking about my daughter and the possibilities of her being across the street from her grandparents, and we love the area that we live in, and it was a really hard market to find a house. We had looked at 22 houses and we actually looked at the house that we're in several times. We're like, wow, like it is in Fox Lake, it is across the street from you know who, but it's a fair price. But like the layout of this house was kind of not our vibe. It's older, like I shared, it's like over 100 years old, and the interior decorating on the surface level was not the worst that I've come across, but there was that thing in me in that flush where I was like, I need a better kitchen. Like all this stuff needs to be fixed. I've never been a first time house owner, right? But I'm gonna do this and we're gonna do that. You don't even know how hard some of the things that you're taking on are. Like you're not educated at all. And I will say that I was raised with a man who hopped to any of my mom's like requests as far as like doing it yourself. My stepfather is like a jack of all trades. He's a handyman, just a wealth of knowledge or a well of knowledge, whatever it's called, of how to's, and very handy that way. Something arose, he took care of it. And that's how I was, expecting. And I went into my marriage kind of expecting. And we moved in after we were married, obviously. And it became very clear that my husband had very little experience doing any kind of hands-on project outside of like technology. Like he knows how to do the lawn mowing and maybe he can do a little, easy fix it project, but really no. And that was a really huge moment for us, I think both, where we realized that we both had expectations of each other in marriage that we really didn't talk about before. Like I would say his expectation was that I work outside the home, right? And do all the cooking, the cleaning, the house, like the rearing, all of that. And I thought, well, if there's something that looks like a man job, it's done and it's done efficiently. I'm not saying that my stepdad was always on it and didn't need sometimes a little push to get finish some projects, but as hardworking as he was, he just always got stuff done, like incredibly so. I ended up coming across the street and I thought I was going to be Barb the builder, right? Like the same great uncle and great aunt that I was telling you about, they had a grandson. I remember one of the summers I spent out there, and he was obsessed with the show Bob the Builder. So that's how I know about Bob the Builder. But I wanted to be Barb the Builder, okay? And it turned out I was just the destroyer. All I knew how to do was demo, right? And even demo became too hard. I started getting in over my head. And I totally did reject really good advice from my parents because, you rebel. You're like, I'm going to do it my way, whatever. And I did know that my stepfather would be willing to help if, things arose. He would be like on the docket, which is why it's been, I think, over the last couple of years, me bucking up and asking the Lord for wisdom on how to do some of these things because he's not, my parents aren't in my safety net anymore, helping me, provide for this house or fix certain things or figure stuff out. So, I kind of got myself in a little fix where number one, I didn't even know what I wanted to do with this house. I really started to hate this house. What this house represented for me ultimately was just our own place. You know what I mean? Like to get away. And I will say over time, the Lord has really softened my heart to see the blessing. Like I love the town I'm in. I love our backyard. It needs a little work. Okay. We chose this off of our like five base things of like, a garage, it had a tub, it had air conditioning, it had, storage space. It had a few things that we really, really said were like a need when we moved in. And, it was a struggle and it worked out. And I always wonder sometimes when I struggle, just like everybody else, like just because I'm saying like we don't question the sovereignty of God, there are times where it comes across my mind like, was this of God or wasn't it of God? But I can say that it has allowed us to have the life that we have, to afford it. It's given me ways to do things that I've never thought I've been able to do. And some serious stuff has popped up in this house where we were going to do this kitchen, but then, like, the pipes explode and we have to do this room first and that room first. And the kitchen has really gotten the back burner, but it's also going to be like the most costly investment to fix. I remember in 2020, we were really considering doing some serious projects. Like we were going to finish the fencing in our yard and hit up the kitchen and start doing that. And everything in 2020 spiked, like the cost of the supplies. Labor is always expensive, but the supply cost of just stuff went through the roof. And I was just like, it's just not the time. And it's really not important because at the end of the day, it's like, it's just humbled me in the sense where it's like you have a kitchen and I may not be able to put the kind of investment that I would like because ultimately in 2020, I decided that I wanted to invest in myself, right? And that became more important to me than trying to get the most aesthetic kitchen and putting that money into my house. And some people do not care to understand that and they can judge me for it. I don't care. I would rather be the hottest thing in the kitchen than the baked bread at the end of the day. Okay. Like, I'm not getting any younger, and this is always going to be our house as far as I know. As I do have dreams about, like I say, packing up, getting rid of everything, and living an RV life. Just completely go, right? That is something that I've shared in my heart with the Lord. He knows my heart, obviously. He knows my desires. And I just stopped fighting what his provisions are for me. I started looking around, being grateful for my own backyard and my own little patio. Speaking of which, the destroyer, right? We had this weird little porch area outside our side door. It had like a ramp stairs going up, a platform, and then stairs going down the other side. Very dumb. Very dumb. It took up like the entire nicely poured patio vibe. And one day, a handful of years ago, my husband was at work and I was like, you know what? I'm done waiting around. I'm done asking. I got a handsaw and I literally started sawing off with a crowbar and pulling stairs off half of the stairs that lead into my home. I had no idea what the final project's going to be. I had no idea how I was going to fix it. It's still standing, it's still working, and it's a complete eyesore, but it allowed me to expand my patio. So it's like very ghetto at the moment. And I just look around me sometimes at like me being the destroyer when I am trying now to be Barb the Builder. I have been sharing with my fellowship group, a couple of girlfriends that hang out. We just share in the Lord, right? And talk about all the things. But one of the complaints I've had is the fact that I struggle with not having someone kind of like my stepdad, where they just know how to do it. They know how to take care of it. They have confidence to figure it out. And me not getting resentful over the fact that my husband doesn't have the desire to be Bob the Builder, nor I to have be Barb the Builder, because my friends would be like, you just need to buck up and do it yourself. And I do have some friends that, do their projects, and it's very inspiring. But it really wasn't in me to want that. I was like, but that's a boy thing. Like, I don't want to get a hammer and nails. I don't want to build stuff. Like, it's been a slow process, truly, of asking God again to plant stuff in my little garden of life where I know it doesn't come of myself. Where now I'm in this season, almost 7 months out now, where I'm like, the spring's coming, and I am intimidated to do really hard things. Like doing sourdough is very, very intimidating to me. So if you would have told me a year and a half ago to 2 years that I would have a freaking sourdough, that I would have the blob essentially in my kitchen growing and I'm feeding it every day to make some bread, I would have laughed you out of my house. For real. I know God is faithful, right? And that's kind of how this is now, where I'm like asking my husband, like, where is the paint? Where are the brushes? And my whole thing is I didn't want to do it out of spite and then have it be like my husband isn't needed. Like I even asked him, I was like, do you want me to do this? I was like, if you really feel like it's in my scope and does not bother you, I will do it. I just do not want to emasculate you when I'm like using power tools and stuff. It's a delicate dance in relationships sometimes. I think we've really come around to being more supporting roles to one another, and he's really taken on some things that I am shocked by. It's not perfect, and this is kind of our first home. We've discovered with like every little remod that we want to do that there's like a deeper issue that actually would need to be fixed, because whatever remodeling these people did over the 100 years that gave the impression that it was remodeled correctly is wrong. Like we always find bubblegum and stick situations as we want to like take something to the next level. And some of these projects that I feel like God is calling out the Barb, the builder in me to want to do these things, to actually look at what I have and make the best of it using what I have, or, him providing the knowledge and inspiration to know that I can do these things, that it is possible, that I'm capable. That's what I'm saying. When you take up space and you start sharing your story of what you're doing, you're helping some of us feel so empowered that it can be done. You're like, if I can do it, you can do it too. And that's just always so encouraging. But yeah, he's filling that desire. He's building my confidence with little things, showing me that I'm capable. And I just feel like this spring and summer and here on out is going to be like season one, Barb the Builder. What are we doing today? What are we going to fix it? Can we fix it? Yes, we can. Just, really grateful for God's provision of patience and stuff over the years. It hasn't been perfect. I never want to lay everything at my husband's feet, because it just goes to show that there's a whole generation of men who weren't really raised to do what they were supposed to do either. I'm not saying that he's not a wonderful provider. I can't wait to share more about certain aspects of our relationship in the future. I'm not saying he's not capable to learn how. It's been like slowly from me trying to live in the Lord's light every day and show him that I'm doing things that I didn't think I was capable of, achieving things that I never thought I would achieve, and kind of help bust his brain open to realize he is capable. And just because he wasn't raised to work with a hammer and nail all the time, or to fix pipes, or to call somebody even to ask for the help if you can't do it yourself. That's been like a huge development in our marriage, because it did not come with the package. Like he's super fun and he's super chill. But at the same time, we both look at this kitchen that I started peeling away at and taking down and stopped mid demo, and we kind of have just like let it slide for the last 7.5 years. And I just feel like grace about it. And if you want to judge me for it, it's fine. I don't blame you. Like I wish I had it in me to have walked in this house and maybe left it there until I could pick one project at a time. But I was so overwhelmed with wanting to like change everything without understanding like time and cost and energy as you're raising kids and going to work and trying to make dinner and do all these things. It just wasn't on the priority list. And there are still going to be times where I'm like, I don't have enough counter space in this kitchen. Ah, I hate this kitchen. I hate this kitchen. And me just having the Lord work on me to change my attitude and be like, I'm so grateful I have a kitchen. I'm trying to make it the best. You know what I mean? Like really glamorizing my life and make it the best. Yes, it looks like something like a tornado came in here, right? But at least it's clean, right? And at least you're using it and you're cooking meals with it and blessing your family through it and blessing strangers. But if you have any tips for your girl over here who's really going through this season of her life of truly like developing some of these characteristics of being a woman and having the courage to go after things like gardening and sourdough and painting and, God knows whatever else, right? Of where I'm gonna be going and where he's taking me. But I am excited to share the journey with you. Again, come and follow me over at the Next Level Glam podcast on Instagram. You can find me at the glamgal_ on Instagram. So come and join me no matter what. I'd love to share that with you. What's something that you struggle with balance in terms of the female roles? Is it like, is it the house? Is it the marriage? Is it motherhood? Is it something specific within those subset stacks? Let me know if there's something to pray for you for, if I can encourage you, if we can laugh together. That's what I'm for. That's what my DMs are for. And I can't wait to see you next week for a whole new episode. I hope to see you there. And until next time, loves, make sure to rest and grow in his grace.